Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to continue with the building of FastAPI application, backend application using FastAPI MongoDB. Then you're going to go ahead and deploy to Heroku, and then you're going to do a CI/CD using GitHub Actions, and also create a Docker container, and then be able to deploy the Docker container on Docker Hub. So this is the project you're trying to do, and you have reached the stage where you're able to do password reset request, where we send an email to the user, and the user is able to reset their password. So in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and actually finish the API section, which you're going to go ahead and build the actual part that allows the users to be able to create blog content, right? So to create blog, to retrieve blog, to update blogs, and to delete blog content. So this is what we're going to do in this tutorial. So let's get started to it. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm actually going to go into my routes file, and instead of my routes file, I'm going to simply create a new file. Instead of my routes folder, rather, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it blog_content.py. okay, so instead of blog content.py, that's we're going to keep our stuff for our content for our blog. So the first thing we need to do, we need to import a couple of things. So I'm going to say from FastAPI, right? So from FastAPI, I'm going to go ahead and import API router, just like that. Yeah, so I'm going to import that, and I'm going to go down here and create a router object, and I'm going to say router, and it is going to be the API router. And then in here, I'm going to go ahead and say the prefix, and it's going to be called the prefix is going to be /blog, and then we can specify the tag name, so tags, and the tags can be a list of tags, so we can just say blog content here, just like that. So now that we have this done, that's all we need. Okay, now that we have this done, that's all we need. So we can go ahead and actually create a fast route. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually to create a blog, because we have the to-dos, right? So we have to-dos, so just exit that. So we have a couple of to-dos, right? So let me just cancel this for now. We have to-dos, right? So I'm going to say type in here to do. Here I'm going to simply type in to do here. So the first thing you're going to do is the CRUD functionality, right? So we're going to actually do the C stands for create. So let's go after give the ability to be able to create the blog post. So we're going to create a route here. So it's going to be called router dot. This is going to be a post request. A person can send a post request, and then it can be able to create a blog content. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it just empty like this, and then use the route to be just empty, because it's going to default to the /blog. And if you send a post request to /blog, means you're trying to create a post content, right, out of the CRUD functionality. So what's the simply going to do in here? You can just simply go ahead and say response description, and just say create blog content. So we say create blog content, just like that. So that's all we need for that. And you can also have a response model, and we'll specify the response model just in a second. But for now, I'm going to have an asynchronous function. So it's going to be an async function, and it's going to be called create _blog. Okay, and in here, what you're simply going to do, let me just pass it for now. What you're simply going to do in this function here, we're going to accept the blog content, blog_content. Okay, so blog content is going to be of type something, right? So we're going to define a schema that is going to allow the user to be able to specify the blog content, so which is going to be this simple schema. So down here, what I'm going to go down here, I'm just going to go ahead and create a simple schema right here. I'm going to call it blog. I can simply say blog content. Okay, blog content just like that. So this is going to inherit from the base model. Okay, so from the base model, we're going to inherit the base model, and use this to create our blog content schema. So what are the things that our blog needs? So our blog needs an ID. Okay, and our ID is going to be very similar to this part here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this one right here. Just copy it properly. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy this one right here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. I need to delete the ID part here, so delete this part section. Yeah, so once we have that done, this we're going to go ahead and create a blog content. So we have the ID. Each blog content will have an ID, and then each blog is also going to have a title, a name, right? A title of the blog. So this is going to be a title, and the title is going to be of type string, and it's going to be field, and then just passing 3 dots here. Okay, and also we're going to go ahead and specify the body of this title, and the body is also going to be of type string, and the default is going to be field, and then dot, just like that. So that's what we need, right? A blog is going to have an ID, a title, and then a body of that content, right? The blog content, we can call it the content. Okay, but I'm just going to call it body. You can call it content if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and have a config. So I'm going to say config class. So this is going to be config config. Instead of this config class, you're going to have arbitrary. So let me just go ahead and going to have something very similar to this, right? I'm just going to copy this and simply paste it down here. So paste it down here. So yeah, so now instead we're going to have a title, and this is going to be also be a body, and this is going to be let me just say blog title, and this is going to be blog content. Okay, let's say blog body or blog content is also fine. So blog content, or you can say blog body, is also fine. So now we have that. That's all we need to be able to generate that. So JSON encoder, and then we have all that information right there. So that's all we need to be able to generate a blog content schema. So I'm going to copy this and simply use it inside of a blog content.py file. So in here I'm going to go ahead and import it. So I'm going to say I'm going to go down here and say from schemas. I'm going to go ahead and import this. So right, so our blog content is the user needs to adhere to this blog content that we just created, right? So, and then the user is also going to also pass in a response model, right? A response model to our blog API, right? So we can go ahead and actually specify the schema for the blog the response model, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. So now a response is going to have an ID, right? A blog, the title, the body. We're also going to go ahead and have the author's name, the author's name. So author name, so author underscore name. So is author, is it with an E or is it with an O? Let me know in the comment section below the spelling of author, but I think it's with an E and not an O. But yeah, just let me know in case I'm getting it wrong. Okay, so I'm going to also have author underscore ID, and this is going to be of type a string again, and the string, and this is going to be a field, just like this, and you have dot. Yeah, that's basically it. And then also we're going to also have the date, which the ID that it was created. So the created at, and the created at is going to be of type string. So this is going to be a field, and then dot, just like that. So yeah, so this is basically what we need. So let's go ahead actually change the return here. So the return is going to have the body, the title is going to have the outer underscore name, and this is going to be name of the author. Okay, and then also we're going to go ahead and have the author ID. So it's going to be author underscore ID, and this is going to be name of the author. Sorry, this is author. This is the ID of the author, right? So it's going to be ID of author, and then you're also going to have the created at. So this is going to be a string. So created underscore at, and this is going to have a description of date created. Okay, or you can say date block created or something, just something simple. Okay, so once we have this, is going to be our response body. So we're going to say blog content response, just like that. And I'm also going to go and copy this, and I'm going to also import it from here. So copy and paste it there. So now we have the blog content, and you're going to go ahead and specify the response model as well. So instead of our routes file here, which is blog content.py, you're going to go ahead and specify the response model. So you can just go up here and then specify the response model. So the response model, and the response model is going to be what we just copied. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it there. Okay, so before a user can create a blog content, we need to also get the user's ID and the user's name of the person who created the blog, right? So we can track which user which blog belongs to. So to do this, the user needs to be authenticated. So we need to have the user needs to be authenticated. So I'm going to just say current underscore user, and it's going to be equals to the current user is going to be equals to depends. So you're going to say depends, and you need to import depends from FastAPI. So from FastAPI import depends, and it's going to depend on a couple of things. So it's going to we need to also import OAuth2. So I'm just going to say from import OAuth2. Okay, so it's going to depend on OAuth2, and OAuth2 we did it in the last tutorial. So OAuth2 we're going to say get underscore current user, just like that. So don't call this function, you just pass it in. FastAPI knows what to do with this function. So current user is going to be depending on get current user, which is going to call the current user. Okay, and if you go back to OAuth2, which you did the last tutorial, we can see you can get the current user. So it takes in a token, and then it's going to verify the token and get the ID from that token, and use that ID to create a database to return to us the currently logged in user. Okay, in case there's an error, it's going to raise this exception. So we did that in the last tutorial, and I explained to you that you're going to be using this function in future videos, and this way you're going to be using it. Okay, so we're going to actually get the currently logged in user. Great. So now we'll be able to get the currently logged in user. Now we're just going to have a try and except block. So try, and inside the try block we're going to have blog underscore content, and the blog content is going to be the following. So we're going to be say JSON. We're going to have a JSONable encoder, so I'm going to import it from FastAPI. So from FastAPI, FastAPI dot encoders, I'm going to import the JSONable encoder. So I'm going to come here and just simply use it here. So JSONable underscore encoder, and this is simply going to go ahead and specify which block content you want to encode. So the content you want to encode is the block content that is going to be passed in. So we're going to encode it into a JSON format. Okay. So once we have this here, let me just pass in this except exception as E, and then we can simply just print that E out, and then here you can raise a HTTP exception. So I need to import a HTTP exception from here. So HTTP exception, and you can just say raise a HTTP exception, and then you can provide in the status code, status underscore code, and the status code we can just import status from FastAPI. So we're going to say status just like this, and you can use status, right? You can say status dot you can say in case there's any error, we can just let me see which status code. I think we can just use 500. So let's search for 500 internal server error. In case anything failed to work, we're just going to return a 500 internal server error. Yeah, and then we can just go ahead and specify the detail, and detail is just going to be internal, so it is going to be a string rather. So internal server error, just like that. So once that we have that done, that's all we're going to do. So we go back to our try part of the code. So in here, we're going to encode the content that the user passes into this variable here called blog content. And once we have that done, we can simply go ahead and add additional information. And additional information is the information that we need to go and return. So we need to pass in the author name, the author ID, and then the date it was created at. So let's go ahead and add that additional information. So I'm just going to say add additional information just here. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and say blog underscore content, and blog content here, I'm just going to go ahead and specify the author name. So author underscore name, and the author name excuse me, and the author name is going to be the following. So it's going to be current user. We need to get the username of that user, right? So current user, and we're just going to say name, right? It's going to be the user's name, and then blog content, blog content, and then you're going to get we're going to go say author underscore ID, and this is going to be equals to the following. So the author ID is going to be equals to current user, and then you're going to get the underscore ID of that user, and then you also need to get the blog content, and then you also need to get the date created. So created underscore at. So it's always good to store the date of any content that you're trying to create. You can use it to sort the blog content based on the date, or you can use it for other different factors. So it's going to be a string of str, and you need to import date time and use it here. So I'm going to go ahead and say from date time import date time. Okay, so I have that here, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to say date time dot UTC now, just like that. So I'm going to get the date time as UTC now, and then store in the date created at. So once we have all that all is actually called created at. Let me just check the schema. Yeah, created at. Okay. So now once we have that done, we can simply go ahead and actually create the blog content itself. So the blog collection. So this is going to be new underscore blog content is going to be equals to await. You're going to await this process. That's why this function is asynchronous, right? So we're going to await this process, and you're going to say db. We need to import db. Okay, so I'm going to import from schemas. I'm going to import db as well. So I'm going to say db, and I'm going to go ahead and say the blog content, blog post. Let's say blog post, and blog post dot insert one dot insert. So this is not supposed to be there. So blog post dot insert underscore one. So insert one, what do we want to insert? We want to insert the blog underscore content, just like that. So this is going to go ahead and insert the blog content inside of our database. So once we have this done, I'm simply going to go ahead and actually return the created blog content. So created So okay, I forgot one part here. So once we inserted the information, now we're going to go ahead and actually fetch it from the database. So I'm just going to say created underscore blog underscore post is going to be equals to await. You're going to fetch it from the database, which is going to be db, and then you're going to go ahead and get it from blog underscore blog post dot find underscore one, and we're going to find one where the ID matches the ID that was just inserted. So even whenever you insert information into a MongoDB database, it returns to you an object that contains an attribute called inserted ID. So you can use the inserted ID to get it. So we're going to say ID, and the ID is going to be called the new underscore blog underscore content dot inserted underscore ID. So new blog content, which is this one right here, dot inserted ID. So I'm just going to copy and paste that to make sure I don't make any errors. So this is actually supposed to be a dictionary, my bad. So this is supposed to be a dictionary, so I'm going to change this to be a dictionary. Yeah, so once we have that there, this is going to return to us a created blog content, and you can simply go ahead and return it to the front end. So we say created blog content. So you're simply going to return it to the end user who called this route. So I'm just going to copy it and simply paste it in here. So that's basically what we need. So we're going to go ahead and create a blog content and insert the blog content instead of it that the user passed in and all the additional information that we added. And once we have that, you're simply going to go ahead and retrieve the newly inserted data information from the database and simply return it to the front end user. So once we have this, if I haven't made any errors, now this is all we need. So I'm just going ahead go into my terminal and then restart my development server again. So let me just make my terminal a bit big so that you guys can. Yeah, so once that is cleared out, I'm simply going to go ahead and actually activate my virtual environment is already activated. So make sure your US is also activated. So I'm going to say uvcon, and then I'm going to say api.main, and then I'm going to open up and then hyphen reload, just like that. So once I have this started up, this is going to go ahead and start my development server running on localhost at port 8000. So now this copy, I'm just going to go ahead and copy the URL here, which is localhost at port 8000. Copy it and simply go inside of my browser. So instead of my browser, I'm simply going to go ahead and paste it in there and then simply load that page. Okay, so paste it in here and then simply load that page. So paste it in here and then load that page. So it looks like my development server is still starting up. So let's give it some more time. Okay, now we started up. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh this. Now if we go to /docs, we should be able to see the documentation part. So /docs. Okay. So in here we cannot actually see the blog content part. So let's go. Actually, we need to go and actually add this to it. So if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, if I go into my main.py file, we need to go ahead and actually add it here. So I'm going to go ahead and import it from route. So I'm going to import blog content, and I'm simply going to go ahead and copy this and paste it here, and then change this to be blog underscore content dot routers. So that's all we need. So let's check if our server is running. It is. So let's go. Still reloading. So once our server is loaded, we can simply go ahead and try to refresh this page. So once it's refreshed, you can see the blog content section here, and we have this right here. So we actually need to be logged in. So actually I can just click on login, and I have one user called test user. So test, I think it's test user, capital test, test user, I think the test user 1, and the password is just, I think is secret. So secret, and let's try to log in. So I think yesterday we might have updated the password of this user. So I think it's called update secret. So I think we have actually updated the password. So I'm going to say update secret, which is a new password of this user. So if I'm not mistaken, we now should be able to log in. So if I try to log in, it failed. So I think it's test user 2, if I'm not mistaken. So try to log in, and now we are logged in. So great. Once you are logged in here, okay, so let me go ahead and click on try. So try. So if you see the padlock here, means you're required to be authenticated in order to have access to this route. Okay, so I'm just going to click on try it out. So inside of try it out, I can just leave it like this. I can just say fast. Let me just add fast here. So here I'm going to type in fast like this, and I'm also going to go in here and simply type in fast blog content, and I'm just going to go ahead and click on execute. Let's see what happens. So we got back a response, which is the body, the ID of the title, the ID of the blog, the title, the body, the outer, the out ID and the date at which it was created out, and this is just a timestamp. So great. So we now have all the ability to be able to create a post. Great. So you can create a post if you're not logged in. So if I go ahead and try to log out, so I'm just going to click on log out and then close this. So once I'm logged out, I can just simply go ahead and you can see the padlock now, it is opened. So if I go ahead and click this, it now should tell me I'm not authenticated. So it should simply tell me that let me just see here, not authenticated. You can see here, I'm not authenticated, so I can create that post. So great. So once you are able to create a post, now we can go ahead and literally retrieve the post and display the post content to the user. So we can display, you can do this in two ways. One, you can retrieve an individual post, or you can retrieve all the posts or a group of posts, right? So the first thing you're going to do, actually retrieve a group of posts. So we're going to have another router here. So it's going to be called router dot a get method, a get request. So inside of this get request, you're going to have a response description, a response underscore description. So you can just say the response description to be get blog content, just like that, and then we can specify the response model. So the response model, and the response model in this case is going to be a bit different. It's going to be a list, so we need to import something from typing. So I'm going to go here and say from typing import lists, just like that. So once I have this imported, I'm going to go down here and say I'm going to say this is going to be of type list, and the list is going to be of type the blog content response. Okay, so it's going to be a list of blog content response, because we're going to have more than one. We can have more than one blog post in there, right? So yeah, so I'm going to have an async function, and it's going to be get underscore blogs. Okay, and this is going to be a function. And what this function simply does, simply get the blog content and return it to the user. Now we can actually limit this to a certain amount. So we're going to say limit it, and we can limit it to limit is going to be a type int, and default is going to be of 4. Okay, so we're going to limit the content, and then we're going to say order by, and then order by let me just get a spelling right, order underscore by, and I think order by you can just leave it to be one word, and order by is going to be of type string str, and by default is going to be of type we're going to say order it by the date created, so created underscore at. Yeah, so we're going to get all the blog content, and you're going to limit it to 4 blog posts, and then they order it by the date in which it was created by. Okay, so we can go ahead and actually say try, have a try and accept blog here. So accept you're going to accept exception as e. So we can just actually copy this and simply use this down here as well. So copy this and simply use it here. Yeah, that's basically what we need. So let me just fix that indentation. So once we have that done, I'm just going to say pass for now, okay, to make sure everything is okay. Yeah, so everything is okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and create a blog post. So blog posts, and this is going to be await. You're going to await this process. That's why this function is asynchronous. Okay, so we're going to say db, and then db you're going to get the blog post. So blog post, and then blog post, we're simply going to say blog post, and then blog post dot find. So we're going to find in which we're going to pass in the following. So we're going to pass in this. So it's going to be a bit of weird syntax. So it's going to be a $sign. So we're going to say $sign, and then we're going to say query. So query, $sign, and then you're going to say query, and the query is going to be of something. So if you want to query based on something, we pass it inside of this dictionary. And then you're going to say $sign. We're going to say string rather. So it's going to be string, and then $sign. We're going to say order by, so order by, and you're going to order by the order by that we got. So order by, you're going to say order by that we got from the user, which is this variable right here. So order by that, and you're going to order in descending order, meaning from the latest to the least latest. And then after getting that, you're going to convert this to a list, so to underscore list, to limit. So we're going to say to list rather. So this enable us to limit what we want to get, right? So to limit, and you're going to say to list, and you're going to say 500, which is the limit here, and you've passed in the limit as 5 you've passed in the limit as the limit variable that we got here, and by default is 4. So this is going to order by the date, and then just get the top 4. Okay, so it's going to order by the date. So once we have that done, you can simply go ahead and return the blog post. Okay, so return blog underscore post, just like that. So that's all we need for this functionality to work. So I'm just going to go ahead into the browser, check if my API is running. Yeah, it is running. So go in here, and I'm just going to click on refresh. So once I have that done, I'm going to minimize this, right? You can see we have the block, and you can just go ahead and click on try. So you can specify the limit, and you can specify what to order it by, and this date by default is date created at. So if I execute this should return to me the list containing of the blog post. So you can see we get back a list containing of all that blog post. So if you add more blog post content, then it will all show up. So I can just go in here and make sure that I'm authenticated. So click on this, and let me get myself authenticated. So this will be test user 2, and my password is just going to be update secret. So update and then secret, and then try to authenticate myself. So once I'm logged in, I'm just going to close this, and I'm going to click try out, and this is going to be called we can call this second. Let's call this also second. And then once I have this, I can just go ahead and execute this. This is going to get executed, and we can see that blog post created. So I'm going to change this to be third. So select this and change this to be third, and also change this to be third, and then just make that post. So let's also make this add another 2 more to make it 5. So this is going to be fourth, just like this. I hope the spelling, that's the spelling of fourth. So if I'm wrong about the spelling of fourth, guys, let me know in the comment section below. So paste that there, and then execute this again. Now it's also created, and now let's say fifth. Let's select that, and then this will be 5 like that, and then I'm just going to click on this. Okay, so we have all the blog posts created there. So I'm just going to minimize this for now, go up here, and then try to retrieve all that post. Now you can see you get 1, 2, 3, and 4, because the limit is 4, right? So if I specify the limit to be 5, then I'm supposed to get all 5, and you can see it's starting from the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, and then the 2nd. The first one was ignored because the first one was created much later on. So it gets ordered according to the date in which it was created at. So if I change this to be the limit to be just 2, and I'm just going to get a list of 2 blog posts. You can see it right here. And if I change the limit to be 5, I'm going to get the top 5 posts, which is all of the posts that we have so far. Yeah, so that's how we can work with that. Now let's go ahead and show you how to retrieve an individual post. So to retrieve an individual post is going to be a bit similar to what you have done so far. So to retrieve an individual post is going to be very similar to what you have done. So I can even copy this and just modify. So I'm going to copy this, copy the content here, copy it, and then simply modify it here. So I'm going to paste it here, and then this will be get, another get. So I can just get, and this should pass in the ID of the post, of the blog post that you want to get. So this will be ID, and I'm going to change this part to be ID, and this is going to be of type string str, and I don't need any of this, so I'm just going to get rid of all of this. So I just need an ID of the content, and then you're going to find by. So I'm going to delete all of this right here. So delete this, and this is going to be this, and then we close off that. So in here, you're going to pass in by, you're going to search by the ID, so underscore ID, and then the ID should be the ID that the user provided. Okay, so in case you don't get it, you can just say the to do content not found or something. Okay, so you can have another function here to check if it was found. If it was not found, you just return you say HTTP exception, say it wasn't found. So you can just put that content, say if blog underscore post is none, if blog post is none. You can go down here and just simply raise another exception and then pass it in here. So just copy this and simply raise another exception here. But yeah, you can do this if you want. You can just raise the exception and then simply say blog with this ID not found. So you can just change the status code. Is going to be the status code here is going to be the status code is going to be HTTP, and then you're going to say 404. So I'm going to scroll down and find the 404 here. Yeah, that's all you need. So great. So let me just keep a bit of spacing in here and a bit of spacing there. Yeah, that's all we need for that to work. So that we can actually go ahead and try this out. So let's check if our server is running. It is. So I'm going to go in here and then just refresh this page. So I can go in here and just click on try out, and then try to get all the ID. I want to copy the ID of one given blog post, which is a blog post of let's say the 3rd one. So I'm going to copy this. So once I have that copied, I'm just going to minimize this, and then I have this other route here. So click on this route and then click on try out. It expects us to pass in an ID. So if I pass in the ID, I can click on execute, and that should return to me. I get an internal server error. So let me just say what the error is. So it says that await expression. So we have a synchronous function get blog post. So again, it's failing somewhere, and then it's returning an error. So await blog post.find, and then the ID, we said await here blog post.find, and then we pass in the ID as the ID, and then simply return that blog content. In case you have an exception, you're going to return that exception. So an exception is occurring, and it says that object async motor cannot be used in await expression. So I think the error is I think we forgot to do something. In here we're just looking for one of them, so you can say find one only. And also I forgot, we just copied and pasted this without changing it. That's why it's bad to copy and paste code. So this actually this could be a simple response, right? Blog response instead of not a list, because we just want a single post back, right? So I think that should work. Now let's go ahead and actually try this out, and let's see if it works this time around. And then we're getting back the blog the blog content, okay? And this of the third the ID which you copied is of the third the blog post, so we get back the third blog post. So make sure that here it's not of type list, it's just going to be of type blog content response, and in here we're just going to be finding one only, okay? So yeah, those are my errors that I made, and sorry for those errors. So once you have that fixed, we are able to also retrieve the blog content of a given individual post. So now let's write the update the functionality to be able to update a given blog post. And to update a given blog post is actually very simple. So it's a bit simple. So let me just say really simple, but it's a bit simple. So I'm going to simply say I have a put request, and then the put request is going to be empty. And then in here to update the post, we actually need to take in the ID of that post, right? So you can't update all the posts, so you need to tell the API which post you want to update, right? So we take in the ID of the post, and you're going to have a response description. The response description is update blog content, okay, just like that, or update blog post, whatever you want to say. And then the response model is going to be the blog content response. So response model is going to be the blog content response here. So once we have that done, I'm going to have an async function here. So it's going to be the update blog, okay? So once we have that, I'm going to take in the ID of that blog, and it's going to be of type str. So once we take in the ID, what else do we need to take in? We need to take in the new blog content, right? So blog underscore content and the blog content is going to be of type blog content, right? So blog content, which is this one right here. So once we have that, we can also get the user must be currently authenticated, right? Because we need for you to be able to update a post, we need to know if you're the one who created that post. And how do we know? We know by knowing who is the currently logged in user. So current user is going to be depending on, so depends on OAuth2 scheme, OAuth2 get current user. So get current user, and that's going to return to us the currently logged in user. So we're going to check if he's the one who actually created the post, and then from there we can allow him to update the post, else we'll tell him that you are not authenticated to update the post. So we're going to say if blog underscore posts, if blog post is going to be, you're going to use this new Python syntax. So I'm going to say await, and you're going to say await is going to be db, and you're going to get the blog it's going to be a blog post. So we're going to say blog post, and then I'm going to simply say dot find. You're going to say underscore find underscore one, and you're going to find by the ID, right? So where you're going to say the underscore ID. ID should match is the ID that you have provided, the ID of the that we get from the query parameter, the query, right? So not query parameter, just from the query. Okay, so we're going to get that post, and if you're able to get the content, right? So we're going to check if going to pass under if blog underscore post blog post, and you're simply going to get the outer of this blog post. So blog post dot outer underscore ID is going to be equals to the current user, and then your current user are going to get the underscore ID of that current user. So we're going to check if the ID of the one who created the post matches the ID of the currently logged in user. Means the currently logged in user is the one who created that post, right? So we're going to go ahead and actually do the following. So we're going to have a try and accept block here to try, and then we say pass, and then we're going to have accept which exception we're going to handle. We're just going to accept a normal exception as E, and then we can just print E, and then we can just raise HTTP exception, HTTP exception. We can raise an HTTP exception, and this exception we can just pass in the status underscore code, and status code is going to be status dot. We're going to say status dot http f404 not found, right? So in case we don't find a blog post, we're just going to return f404, so not found. And then we just pass in here the details, and then just say detail, and the detail is going to be post or blog content not found, so blog content not found, just like that. So that's all we need. That's all we need to have that set up. Yeah, that's basically what we need. Okay, so once we have that that try and accept block, yeah, so that's once we have that done, I'm just going to go in here and we can just say blog underscore content, and the blog content is going to be the following. So we're going to pass in a dictionary. We're going to say key, we're going to map the key and the value, and we did this in the last tutorial, so we're going to use a dictionary comprehension for this. So key comma value in the blog content underscore content dot items, right? So blog content, we have to first convert this into a dictionary, so dot dict, and then dot content, and then dot items rather, and then we're going to check if v, I'm going to say if v is not none, just like that. So that's what we have, and you're going to simply map everything into a dictionary. So once we have everything mapped into a dictionary, we can actually go ahead and check the length of it. So we're going to say if length of the blog underscore content, if the length of the blog content is greater or equals to 1, so is greater or equals to 1, means you're going to update this information. So if the length of the blog content is greater or equals to 1, you're going to say update underscore result. And update result is just going to be the following. So update result is going to be await. Await, you're going to go ahead and get the DB, and you're going to go ahead and get the blog post. And then blog post is simply going to go ahead and update the content. So we're going to say dot update, update 1, and it's going to go ahead and simply pass in the underscore ID, and the ID is going to be the ID that we get from the user, okay, which blog content you want to update. Then you pass another dictionary and simply say this is going to be a string, and then $, so $, and say set. And you're going to set the new updated content to the new blog underscore content that we get. So that's basically it, what we need to update the blog content. So set, and then we have this right here. Yeah, that's basically what we need. So I actually made an error here. This will be a dictionary is on, and I need to delete this at the end here. Yeah, that's all we need to have that set up. So we're just going to get the blog content and then pass into a dictionary, and then simply say update 1, which blog do you want to update, the one which the ID was provided by the user, and then we're going to pass in the content to update it with. So once we have that done, I'm just going to go ahead and do another check. So if updated underscore result, if updated result, which is this variable right here. So if updated result dot modified underscore count equals to 1, right? The modified count should be to 1. So this will be update and not updated. So copy that and paste it there. Yeah. So if the modified count is equals to 1, what I'm going to do? We're going to have another check here. If updated underscore blog underscore post, if updated blog post is going to be await. So make sure that you have the new Python syntax I'm using here. So it is going to like assign and check for some values, right? So we're going to simply say await db, and then you're going to go ahead and check for the blog post. So blog post, and then blog post is going to find 1, whereby the ID equals to the ID that was provided. So the ID dot find underscore 1, whereby the ID underscore ID is going to be equals to the ID that the user provided. And then you're going to check if it's not none. So is not none, just like that, is not none. Yeah, that's basically what you're simply going to do. Let me just move this outside of the condition of the parentheses. So move that outside of the parentheses. That's how it's supposed to be. It's not none, and not if not none is not none, just like that. Yeah, so if it's not none, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and return the updated blog post. Yeah, so that's what you're going to simply do there. In case we have an existing post, we're going to check if you have an existing post. If existing, let me say existing underscore post. If existing post blog post, right? If existing blog post, you're going to use a new Python syntax. Okay, you're going to simply say await db, and you're simply going to get the blog post, So blog post, and I'm going to say dot find one, so dot find underscore one, and you need to pass in the ID, right? So I'm going to say ID underscore ID, and the ID should match to the ID that we got from the user. You're going to simply say is not none, and then in here I'm going to go ahead and return existing post right here. Yeah, that's basically what we did. In case we have an error, you're going to go ahead and simply raise a HTTP exception, and you're going to pass in the following. So we're going to pass in a status underscore code, and status code is going to be a status dot HTTP. You're going to use a 44, so not found, in case the block content was not found or something happened. So bad request, sorry, not a bad request, underscore 44. So for let me just find the 44. 4944 not found, and then in here just going to specify the details. So you can just pass the details in here, say detail, and detail is just going to be block content not found, just like that. Yeah, just like that, and that's how you can deal with it. But you see, this exception should be the one which handles the else. We should have like an else block that returns a 44 of if the block content not found. This is actually checking the block content, and if it's not found, and this exception should have else, which you said you are not authenticated, right? So you should have another that deals with this. So you're going to have an else here. So down here you're going to have an else, and then else you're going to simply raise HTTP exception. So HTTP exception, and you're going to simply pass in the following. So we're going to pass in the status underscore code. So that's, and the status code is going to be status dot HTTP underscore 403. I think 403 is forbidden or not authenticated. Let me just find the one for not authenticated. So here, not authenticated, and then let's pass in the detail. Detail is just going to be following. So it's just going to say you are not the author of this post. So I say you. Let me just undo that. So just say you are not the author of this post, or let's say post or blog post. Yeah, so you're going to say that you're not the author of this blog post. So if this field, you're going to tell the user that is not the author of this post. In case this is not found, you're just going to return a 404. Let me just copy this, and you can return a 404 down here. So I'm going to raise a 404 exception. So copy this, you're going to have another exception here. So I'm going to say else, and then just pass it here, and then you're going to say raise exception. So this is going to be raise. Okay, we actually have the raise already there, so this is going to say raise exception, and you're going to go ahead and raise that exception there. So let me just fix this indentation. So it's going to be here, and also let me just fix this indentation part here just to clean up the code, and then let's fix this right here. I think it should be like that. It's fine. Yeah, so in case we get the if we don't get the post, you're going to say 404. In case it's not the author, you're going to raise not authenticated. Okay, and then you're going to have the else and try code here. So this is actually supposed to say like should be something like internal server error. So it's going to be HTTP, let's just say internal server error here. So let me just go ahead and get a 500. So 500 internal server error, and then just return an internal server error. Yeah, great, that's all we need. So everything should be fine right now. We should be able to update post content. So let's check if the server is running. So I'm just going to go ahead and check if my server is running. Yeah, it is running. Great. So I'm going to go into the front end, and let's get this ID of this blog post, because we're going to try to update the third one. Okay, copy that and simply refresh this page. So once my page is uploaded, so I'm just going to minimize this for now, and we have the update functionality. So I need to be authenticated. Okay, so I'm going to say test user 2, and then my password is going to be update secret. So go ahead and authenticate myself, and once I'm authenticated, I can just close this up and just click on try it out. And then here I'm going to pass in the ID of the post that you want to update, and then just say this is going to be updated third title, and then this is going to be the updated third content. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on execute. So now we will be able to update the following. You can see that the blog post has been updated. So if I minimize this as well and then try to get all the blog posts, so click on this and try to get all the information, now we should get the blog post has been updated. So the third one, which was right here, you can see now has been updated, third title and then updated third content. So I'm able to update this. Okay, now if you log in as another user and try to update this shouldn't work because you are not the author of this post, right? Because this condition here passed because they're saying author ID is equals to the current user ID. Okay, so that's why we're able to update the post. So if you're not the author of this post, then you can't update this post content. Yeah, so that's how you can update the content. Just to save time, you guys can try this out on your own. If you are able to log, you can change it into another account and then try to update the information using that other account. You should get the error here. So this is, if this fails, you're going to get this right here, status for one unauthorized. So we are not the author of this blog post. Yeah. So once we have that done, let's go ahead and actually write the functionality to be able to update the post. So I'm just going to have another router here. So router dot, this is going to be delete route. So delete and then delete, just like that. So to delete the route, you need to get the ID of the post that the blog post you want to delete. So you need to pass in the ID, and then we also need to pass in the response underscore description, and let's say you can say here delete blog post, just like that. And you can pass in the response, and the response you can, for now you can leave out the response, is not necessary, so I'm just going to leave out the response. And then we can have a function, a sync function here. So we need to have def delete underscore blog underscore post. So we need to get in the ID, we need to get the ID, and the ID is going to be a type string, just like that. And for you to be able to delete the post, we can only delete posts that you created. You can delete posts that other people created. So we need to get the current user, right? So current underscore user, and it's going to be depends. So it's going to depends, and we're going to pass in the function. So we're going to say OAuth2 dot we need to get the current user. So get underscore current user. So it's going to return to us the current user. Okay, so once we have that information done, we can simply go ahead and then check if you're the person who created the post. If you're the person who created the post, then you should be able to delete that post, right? So if the author ID of that post is matches your ID, then you should be able to delete that post, means because you're the one who created the post, right? So I'm just going to say post underscore blog post is going to be equals to, and I'm using the new Python syntax, so watch out for that. So await, and I'm going to simply say db, and I'm going to go ahead and get the function. So I'm going to say blog post, and then I'm simply going to say blog post dot find underscore one, and this is going to take in a dictionary, right? So I'm going to simply say underscore ID, and the ID of this blog post that we want to find should be the ID that we got from the user, right? So the user is who is making that request. Okay, so once we get the blog post, and then we're going to check try, you're going to have a try and except block. So try, and then I'm going to simply pass, and then I'm going to have an exception here. So exception, except rather, not exception. So except exception as e, and then I can go ahead and simply print that exception out. Okay, just like that. So in case you have any exception, I can actually go ahead and actually raise an valid exception. So you can just say raise HTTP exception. So raise HTTP exception, and then I'm going to go in here and specify the status underscore code, and the status code is going to be the following. So the status code is just going to be we can say status status dot let's say let's go ahead and say let's return internal server error, just a simple error. So but you can think about these exceptions and return better things for them, but I'm just going to keep things simple and just return this exception and then just skip on. So this is going to be an internal server error. Oh, okay, yeah, that's basically what we need here. And yeah, so we should be able to have access to this blog post. Now what if you're not able to have access to it? So you're going to have an else block. So else, you're going to simply raise another HTTP exception. So HTTP exception, because this should be we are not authenticated, right? So this would be status underscore code, and the status code should be status underscore code, and the status code should be the following. So status, let's get the status underscore code. Status code should be status dot http unauthenticated, so let's be a 401. So here unauthenticated, and then you're just going to say ahead and say detail, and the detail is going to be the following: you are not the author of this this post or this blog post, just like that. Okay, so what if the person is the author of the blog post? So just I'm going to go ahead and actually get delete this post. So I'm going to say delete delete underscore response result. So let's say delete result is going to be await. That's why you have this function being asynchronous, because you have await functionality in here. You're going to say db, and then you're going to say blog post, and then blog post. So I'm going to go ahead and simply say dot delete underscore one. So what do you want to delete? So we want to delete the one with the id which the user specifies, so id, just like that. Yeah, so that's all. Should delete that information for us, and you're going to have a check here and say if delete result. Yeah, if delete result dot delete underscore count equals to 1. So if the delete count is 1, means it has been deleted. You're going to simply return. You can return a JSON encoder, right? You can import JSON encoder. So we need to actually import JSON encoder. So let's go up here and see how we can import it. Let me just say you can import JSON here. So JSON. Why do you need to import JSON encoder? So let me just check which library from which library JSON encoder comes from. So it comes from api.response. So from FastAPI.response import JSON encoder. Okay, JSON response rather. So we're going to return a JSON response here. Here, and in JSON response is simply what I'm going to say in this JSON response is status code, and status code is going to be 403, which is content not found. So I'm going to say status underscore status. I think it's status code, and status code is just going to be status dot http. This is going to be http. And this is going to be a 403 content not found. So JSON response, you're going to say status code and equals to status dot 402. Okay, sorry, a 204, which is the content not found. So just keep that done. So once I have that, in case we have any error, the content was not deleted, right? You're going to simply raise an exception, raise a HTTP exception. So in this HTTP exception, I'm simply going to say 404. We can just say internal server error or something occurred, because if the blog content was not found, if it was not found, then we should raise this here. If it was here, if it was not found, so this is actually if it was not found, and then I think we missed one part here. We forgot to actually do one more part. So we didn't actually check if the author of this post is the one who is trying to make the delete request. So I forgot that part, so let me just do it here. So if blog post, right? So if blog post, and then you're going to get the author underscore id. If the author id equals to the id of the current user, so it's current user, and the current user, you're going to get the id of that current user, so it's going to be underscore id. So if that will make sure that the current user is the one who created that post. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and indent all this part. Okay, yeah. So if in case there's an error that the person is not the one who created the post, that's when you're going to have this exception. So we're going to have this exception here. Else down here, we're just going to go ahead and raise another exception. This exception is going to be so if the person created a post, this is going to be a 401 unauthenticated, right? And then you're going to simply say this. Yeah, so if you fail to find this blog post, you can just have another else statement down here, and then say else. We're going to raise HTTP exception, and you can just simply pass in the status. So pass in the status underscore code, and the status code is just going to be status dot HTTP exception. So it has to run a 404. Means the content wasn't found, so 404, and then you can pass in the detail, and then the detail is just going to be blog content not found on the server. Okay, just like that. That's all we need. So in case we are able to get the content, if you are not, you return this else. If you find it but this you're not the author, you're going to return a 4 or 1 unauthenticated, right? The author of this blog post. Else we're going to go ahead and do all this functionality. In case you have another error, we're going to simply raise an internal server error here. Okay, so I'm going to say status code. Just like this, we say status underscore status code, and the status code is just going to be status.http exception. We're going to return internal server error. So I'm just scroll down down to 500, and then just say detail, and the detail is just going to be internal server error. So I'm going to copy this right here and simply paste it here. Yeah, that's all we need to delete the post. So we're going to get the post, check if the one who is trying to delete the post is the one who actually created the post. If it's not, you're going to simply return 4 or 1 unauthenticated, and then you're simply going to have, else if you're the person who created the post, you can delete the post, and you have all this logic. In case the post was not found, you're going to return a 404 error. Great, so that's all we need. And let me just go ahead and save this content right here, and yeah, we can go ahead and actually try this out. So I'm just going to go ahead into my terminal and then check if our development server is running. It is good. So I'm just going to go in here and let me just grab this ID. You're going to use this ID, so I'm just grab this ID and let me just refresh this page. So once I have the page refresh, you can see we have the delete part right here, and it requires it has to be authenticated. So I'm going to click on this and then authenticate myself. So I'm going to say my password is update secret, and my username is test user user 2, and then just go ahead and click authorize to authorize myself. And once I'm in, I'm just going to go ahead and click this and then click on try this out, pass in the ID, and now you can see we are not getting the content. So we need to get the yeah, that's all we need. We actually need to get the ID to the request, and then just click on execute, and now we got an internal server error. So let's check what the server is. It says outer. Okay, I got the spelling wrong of outer there, so this is going to be outer, just like that, outer underscore ID, and now that should be fixed. So let's check if the server is running. It is. So let's go ahead and try this out one more time. So internal server error, we got another server error. So what's the error this time? It says delete object has no attribute delete count, or I think it's delete counts, but let's check it out. So it's deleted count. So it's not delete count, it's deleted count. So deleted count here. So deleted count. Yeah, so now that that actually got deleted before it reached here. That's why we should now try to get another blog content to delete. So let me just execute this. Now you should get a 4 or 4 something. Yeah, blog content not found, because that's already been deleted, right? So if I go back in here and then try execute this and then execute, now we should have only 4 left. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Great. Let's try to delete the very first one. So I'm going to copy its ID. So copy the ID, go down here and then just paste its ID, open up this and then paste its ID in place of this, and then let's try to execute this. So we got another internal server error. What does this? It says the keyword argument status code. We got another keyword status code. Internal server expected keyword argument status code unexpected. I think it should be somewhere here. So the JSON response. I think I made an error here. So I think this part here we need to actually let's check if we have status code, status code, and that's it as it should be, status code all the way. So I think here we should just this should be a HTTP exception and not a JSON encoder. So this is status code of that. Okay. Yeah, that's all I need to, I think we need to do. So let's go ahead and try this out one more time. Check if our server is running. Yeah, it is running. We get a 404. So it actually been deleted. So let's actually go and try to delete the very second one. So copy this one, and hopefully we are not emptying out our database, hopefully. Yeah, so everything now it has been deleted. Now you can see we got back a response of 200 status code 204 content not found. So great, we have been able to delete that post. So sorry for that error here. We need to change this to be status code and not a JSON encoder. So I actually need to go ahead and delete this import here, so I don't need it anymore. yeah, so that's basically it, how we can do we deal with encoding, decoding and stuff like that. So everything was as expected, and you know we have the CRUD functionality for our blog post. So now if I refresh and let's see what we have just 2 more left. So I can just go ahead and try to delete this one, so we can have just the 5th one left. So I can just go ahead and paste it here, and then just click on execute. So you got back, it has been deleted. So if I go back here and try to get all of them, so I can get back only 1 blog post. Yeah, so that all that functionality works. And one thing I encourage you guys to do, create another user, try to log in with that user and try to update the content of another user, try to delete the post of another user, and that should not work. That should return to you, that should fail on this side, and it should return to you this unauthorized error. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it for this tutorial. So if you guys enjoyed it so far, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and let me know what you think of the video if I need to make any improvements. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.